say is that if you do not have a long-term view, all these things that you have to repeat again and again and again, you don't know the meaning of it.
Wow.
And that's where you lose focus because other things become exciting and the home front becomes more of an irritation to you because you don't
Oh,
see
that's
the
true.
sense. Where is this going? It's the same thing again. That's what we mean by operational parenting. You don't see the meaning, the purpose.
Raising kids in the digital age. It is indeed a huge challenge, especially for young parents today, that while everything is so accessible these days and children's learning becomes accelerated, at the same time, there are also many pitfalls that come with it, such as distance in relationship between family members, technology addiction, and many more unprecedented challenges that seem to appear every single day. So, how do we enable them to flourish in this exciting age of opportunities while building healthy family relationships, the adherence to the deen, and instilling good core principles that will set them up for success in the dunya and akhirah? In this episode, we discuss practical strategies and mindsets to navigate giving good tarbiyah with the challenges that we face in the modern age. And we are honored to be joined by the fantastic husband and wife team of Ahmad Fakhri and Jamilah Samian of the Cool Mom and Super Dad Consultancy, who are subject matter experts on the topics of youth leadership, leadership in parenting, and community development, regularly conducting seminars and training for leading companies in the corporate world, while also authoring many books on the subject with the mission to inspire parents to raise future leaders. Barakallah fikum.
ولو أن أهل القرى آمنوا واتقوا لفتحنا عليهم بركات من السماء والأرض.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin. Brothers and sisters, welcome to the Barakah Effect podcast. The topic of our discussion this week is parenting struggles in the digital age, a purposeful approach. And for this episode, we have not one but two guests from the Cool Mom Super Dad Consultancy, the dynamic husband-wife duo Ahmad Fakhri and Jamilah Samian. Ahlan wa sahlan, Uncle Ahmad and Aunty Jamilah.
Waalaikumsalam. Shukran.
So thank you very much for making time with us on our discussion today. So Uncle Ahmad and Aunty Jamilah formed the Cool Mom Super Dad Consultancy, named after their book, Cool Mom Super Dad. Aunty Jamilah is also the author of several other books, such as what I have right here in my hand, Cool Boys Super Sons, The Kindness Miracle, and the one that I'm currently reading right now, which is Leadership in Parenting. MashaAllah. So just for the information of our listeners out there, the reason I'm calling them auntie and uncle is because I know them personally. So, so yeah, the reason I'm highlighting that right now is that I got to know, sorry?
Also, we may be older than you.
Yeah, that's the thing, Uncle. I got to know the hard way, right? That apparently in the Malaysian culture, it can be kind of offensive to sometimes call someone auntie. So I learned that uncle is okay. People are like uncle, is like, oh, mashallah, uncle. There's a sign of respect and friendly guy, wise or storyteller. But auntie is like, hey, hello, I'm not that old, okay? Response. And they're like, hey, hello, you're not that young, okay? So I learned the hard way. So there's a disclaimer out there. It's for the listeners to know, right? So, mashallah, Uncle and Auntie, we met each other a lot through the Al-Kawthar Institute, yeah, mashallah. Yeah. I remember going to a lot of those, yeah, Uncle and Auntie?
Yes.
And almost everyone I would see, all those courses I would see Uncle. And I still remember Uncle was the very participative kind of A student in class. You were always like asking thought-provoking questions, something sharing insight. And it's like, whoa, it was always a blast to have you around. So when I see you like at the corner, you're like, yeah, this is going to be nice.
Probably of keeping himself awake, Faisal.
Okay. So those are the behind the scenes, huh?
Hacks, right there.
It works to keep us awake too. So jazakallah khairan. But mashallah, at the time they used to call you Brother Ahmad. So mashallah, you look so young. I always used to consider you like abang or big bro. It's only like until we went. Sorry?
Age is just a number.
Indeed,
yeah,
indeed.
there you
That's
go.
right.
There you go. And it's only when we went to the Al Kauthar Knowledge Hive. Do you remember that, Uncle? I think that was back in
Yes,
2000,
yeah.
2009, I think. Wow, that was like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then one of our classmates was your son, Saifuddin, I think. Was it Saifuddin?
I think it was Salahuddin and Safi.
Salahuddin and Safi.
Safi.
Yes,
That's right, Safi. That's the one I knew.
Safi. Yeah.
That's right. So I was like, oh, these guys are like around my age. Huh? Oh, okay. So,
We got married,
mashallah.
so that's how it is.
MashaAllah.
Sorry?
Alhamdulillah.
Well, we got married young at 22 years old.
Alhamdulillah.
Oh,
Alhamdulillah.
Mashallah. That's nice. Barakallah fikum. So that's really nice. So yeah, another nice detail is that all of us have something in common with Miri. So mashallah, and which is where I am right now. And both uncle and auntie, we spent a significant amount of your time of your careers in Miri. Yeah? So mashallah. And Miri is kind of the common ground that all of us had at the Barakah effect. So Aziz, Shahmi, Reza, all of you born and raised here, right?
Yeah. Born and raised in Miri.
Mashallah. And Amir and I, we kind of spend a lot of our time of our career, even currently working here in oil and gas.
Yep.
So perhaps, mashallah, we can consider a future episode untuk Pelakar Sawak lah, Uncle.
Boleh. Sudah hal itu.
Boleh, ha? So, Amir kena crash course sikit lah, Amir. Boleh,
Betul, yeah. I got it. With the midnight oil a bit.
MashaAllah. So yeah, we I think one of the nice things also, we organized the parenting course, Anugerah Anak Terindah. It was 2015 in our office here. So that's actually 4 out of 5 of us at the Barakah Effect. We attended that course. So
Yes.
Amir and I were the committee, and Aziz was also there.
Yeah, participant. And that was my first parenting course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really
It was an eye-opener because usually parenting course, the significant speakers are always the mothers, and I always pay attention automatically when a mother speaks because they are hands-on skill. Like a dad, they may give strategy opinion, but that's about it. But Uncle Ahmad proved otherwise. I think I was engaged throughout the entire course.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah.
Ya Allah Mubarak. That was a really good experience.
Yeah.
Even Shahmi was there as a actually, in hindsight, he was a newly married couple at the time. Actually,
That's right.
Mashallah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mashallah. So, mashallah, jazakallah khairan once again for making time for us. So, for the benefit of the listeners out there, we'd just like to know you just a bit more. So, Uncle and Auntie, from what we've been following you so far, your social media, the books that you write, the seminars you conduct, obviously we can feel this passion about parenting. It oozes out from the products and from all the delivery that you've delivered so far, mashallah. So I'm curious, have you always had this have you always been very intentional and very conscious and very purposeful approach about parenting, or is it something like as a couple you kind of decided on day one, it's kind of the approach that you want, the mother or the father that you want to be, or is it something that sort of evolved throughout the years and the experience?
Yeah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Thank you for the warm welcome to Faisal, Amir and Aziz for this wonderful sharing session, and I believe that hopefully this would give us additional insight on how we equip ourselves, not only just as parents, but as the khairah ummah, to where we can contribute back to the mankind. Now, Miri has a very soft spot in our heart because that's where we started our life, working there, as well as also our beginning the life as a family. And what happened is that I started my career as an engineer. And being an engineer, working offshore for that matter, either in Baram Delta or the Luconia area, it also dawned upon you that you have to deal with people. And even at my younger days at the university level and at the secondary level, I have always been someone who tend to look after for people. So it's a people-centric that it finally, after 10 years in engineering, I jumped ship into HR. And the main reason is that because of, I believe, that talent development or people development is indeed one of the most important a very important factor in success. You may have the most sophisticated machine and technology and equipment, but if you don't have the right people who you can motivate, who have the capability, you won't be able to maximize and leverage the things that you have. So when you have children, then obviously I then relate how I handle people management with the children at home. So you could see that you cannot get away from putting some form of principle, some form of policy, guidelines, so that then if you have to be seamless, you know, not only in the office, but also at home and wherever you are when you meet people. So when people ask me, why do you change from engineering to HR? So I pointed out, if I visit you in Miri again at your house, would you be asking me about your compressor of your aircon or the carburetor of your car? Your choice,
right.
Your choice would be is that how about I'm in a midlife career crisis, for instance. My children need to go for which career pathway. So that's where I'm a great believer of talent development, and that's where I think if you go to Sister Aunty Jamilah, that's where our path cross. Because as an engineer and HR, and she was a computer science. It was quite a different career pathway, but we meet along those lines by having the children. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, thanks for having us, Aziz, Faisal, and Amir. The very quick answer to your question just now, Faisal, whether it's intentional, the answer is not. Because I never imagined myself that I would be doing parenting or talking about parenting. It started because of my own issues in raising our children. I realized several years after having children that I didn't really have a clue of how to handle children. I knew very little. It was kind of like I felt that the children, especially the two other ones, they were quite distant from me. And I did not know why. So I came from a very technical background. We both of us worked in Shell, and I was in the IT department as a senior staff. I wrote as well as design programs for the geologists those days. So
oh wow, very technical, huh? Mashallah.
Yeah, very, very technical, because my original degree was in computer science and mathematics. So yes, that's very true. Yeah, very technical. But I quit after a few years since our eldest son had some health issues. He's okay now, he's doing well, but in those days it was not well. And we were just, literally running to the doctor's clinic every week. So that's how I became a full-time housewife in those days. So back to this question of when the two older kids were in their preteens, I began to realize that there were things that I had no idea how to deal with them. It's not really disciplinary issues, but I wanted a warm and enduring relationship with my children. That was one thing that I was clear about. And yet I sensed that was not really happening, So I began to equip myself with reading and trying to find out what works. And it was kind of an experimental thing, because when you start reading books, it can be very overwhelming. This book says this author says that.
I went through that, mashallah.
Yeah, going against one another, and also the issue of which one particularly do I start. It's really, but at the end of the day, I remember that particular moment when that was the turning point in my parenting journey. This is what you call catching the kids doing something right. And I realized that maybe there was something about it that I was not doing well. So one day, I went downstairs. We were living in a double-story house at that time. I saw that somebody had washed the dishes in the kitchen. So I knew that it was my eldest, because he, sometimes when he saw any dirty dishes, he would wash it. So I called him down, and he came down, And I pat him gently on the back and said, thank you for washing the dishes. So he stepped back. Now, can you imagine his reaction? He stepped back with a look of surprise on his face, and he said, "You nak cakap itu aja ke? Is that all you wanted to say?" I said, "Yes." And I asked him, "Why? Kenapa?" And he said, "Ingatkan nak kena marah tadi."
Oh,
Masya
he was
Allah.
expecting that, Oh.
At that moment when I heard him say that, it really hit me like a bullet. He said, "This is one of the greatest lessons. My first lesson that when you, as a parent, you are very concerned about your children. You love your children, and you wanted them to always do the right things. But in so doing, you tend to, well, for me, it was true. Maybe it's not true for other parents. Yeah, for some other parents. Certainly, I was on the wrong path of trying to, every time I saw them doing something wrong, I would say it, hoping that it would make it right. And it became like a focus in my parenting style, criticize. Kalau ada benda salah tu, I have to say it out in the hope that they will correct it. But actually, when you understand about children, that's not how it works. It's called reverse psychology. The more you catch them doing something right, the more they will do the right things, and the less they will do the things that they're not supposed to do. So you did mention just now in our discussion, we want to focus more on the practical things. And I must say that it's not that I did not read any parenting books as I was expecting or before I became a parent. It's just that what I found again and again is that a lot of them, especially from the Islamic viewpoint, they are quite abstract.
Gotcha.
Translate, raising good children into practical. Dari segi, how do I change my behavior? What are the aspects of children that I need to understand, and how do I fit my behavior into that to raise good children? So that was my major challenge, and I began writing. I love writing. I began writing bit by bit, and well, eventually it turned into a book. And I thought after one or two books, I would have had enough. I'm now writing my 7th book. It seems like this topic.
7th book, mashallah.
Yeah, a lot of things that hopefully will be able to help other parents. And I would like to add, the reason Uncle joined me is because I spoke to him many, many times. I persuaded him to join me because after several years, he has been accompanying me to present all these parenting talks. I realized that there are so few men being involved, and yet fathers, the more I read about researchers, about the issues with raising children, it has a lot to do with fathers. And yet the fathers are not there. This is something that the mothers often complain about as well, because the fathers are not really contributing. They could be contributing, they could be there physically, but emotionally they're not.
Yeah.
As well as, I wanted a male figure there to do this job.
That's what differentiate you with the other consultant. You have both there, right?
Yeah.
Both uncle and auntie are there. So it was like an eye opener for me when I was first attending your course.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, you're right, Aziz, because it takes a thief to catch a thief. So it's a father to catch a father. When a father hears a mother or a lady speaking, then they say, why should I listen to them then?
SubhanAllah.
So I think that was very deliberate, so that then, especially the fathers, they didn't feel that they can see someone is also doing it, and why not, basically. But before we jump, there's one thing that I want all of you to think. When you think about investment of your children, financially, how much do you think, have you ever thought how much you spend to raise a child in Malaysia? If for financial people, people like you all doing your projects, you would think that how much each of the project is going to cost. Am I right?
Indeed, that's right. Yeah.
So let me just cut short the story. There are 2 studies being made. One was in 2016 by AIA. The other one was 2020. The 2020 shows that at least a minimum of from 0 to 17 years old is RM 150,960 ringgit. Okay, it shows that an average of about 10,000 per year per child, or about roughly about 1,800 ringgit per child. So that was the 2010 by motherhood.com. But AIA, when they made the study, they gave a whopping same duration of between, depending on which school you send, depending on lifestyle you have, between 400,000 to 1.1 million. That was the same question struck me when I joined HR and asked, why do we do such a rigorous and robust recruitment exercise just to hire one graduate executive like you guys, even in Petronas? And the response from the global head of recruitment is, he asked the same question. How much do you think an executive in a company like Shell, on the average, from they are starting 20 odd years old until about 55 or even 60, how much do you think it will cost? Everybody gave their answer, which always so far based on his assessment and actual calculation. $7 million.
No way.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
All the cost for your travel, your gaji, your bonus, your health, your transfer, your training, everything all in. Now, if you ask me that we have to spend 7 million to executive, I think that's why they choose the right people. You and I, when we have children, and if you know that you're going to spend, for argument's sake, half of that figure between 400 to 1.1 million, even 700,000, that's a whopping figure to raise. And if you are given 700,000 and you're just going to do simply spend,
gotcha.
I don't think we're just going to be very so you now know that this value of the project, raising your children, is going to cost this.
What do you want from that project?
So are you not going to equip yourself with the skill? Are you going to make sure that you do it properly? Are you going to make sure? But if you got about project, you knew that you can have intervention, any delay, buy equipment, blah. But human being, if the child grew up and instead of you proud of them, but he is waiting for you in the remand center of the police, you wish that this boy was not born. It's your reputation. So the investment financially is already something that you have to take care, but your reputation, your own lineage, depend, all those things start to come in, and that gives what Auntie said just now, that we have not done justice of our role as parents because we simply did not equip ourselves enough to raise it, let alone the Quran, let alone the Hadith, let alone all the values and principles have advocated to us to be good parents, so that then they have 1/3 of our investment in akhirah. Can you imagine 1/3 investment? You can bring 2/3.
SubhanAllah.
They have 1/3, and imagine this 1/3, if it's drag you down, it may not cover that 2/3 investment that you thought you brought in akhirah. I think that is very profound opinion. So that all of us really, especially when you are thinking group, you realize that this role, this duty, it is not something to be taken lightly.
Uncle, I just like to quote something, because sometimes when we go for this kind of project management courses, they like to bring this quote by Warren Buffett, like spending money is easy, getting value is an art. I think that's exactly your point, because we're going to spend money, but now we're going to get how much value we're going to get, and that's the art we're going to unlock today.
Yeah, I think you can look at money success in terms of ROI, return of investment. How much you put $1, then you get more than $1. Yeah, you are successful. But in a child, what is it that really, when you put your investment there, what kind of return are you looking at? But the Prophet and the prophetic tradition has made it clear. Your return is your wanted investment is in them, is in their dua to you, is in how you have raised them. So it is a duty, not only a moral duty, not an obligation, but you just cannot run away from it. And
Can I quote a book? I'd like to concur what Aunty Jamilah just mentioned just now about the role of father effect gives a tremendous effect to the upbringing of the child. Yeah. So there was this book I came across. It's called The Faith of the Fatherless. So there's a psychologist called Paul Vitz. Yeah. So he tries to unlock. He's a Catholic research psychologist. So he tried to unlock what are some of the causes for atheism being so rapid in the States. Yeah. So one of the big reasons is because of the father. So they have a lot of dissatisfaction, the child and the father, that leads to atheism when they grow up. So interesting point, but Aunty Jamilah, you brought that. It brings a lot of sense to mashallah, subhanallah.
So Faisal is an appetizer. We'll go to the main course now.
Yeah, loving it. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing the context on that. Mashallah, just by that alone, just by sharing the your backgrounds and where you're coming from, it's so inspiring. So number one, like from what I got from Uncle Ahmad, what you're sharing is that you came from a place of the reason your main driver for switching into HR, human resources, is because you came from the place of recognizing the potential of other people to grow and how you can play that role to nurture that potential to become the best person that they can be, right? And you channel that passion into parenting. Essentially, HR is essentially who are workers. We are basically children who are bigger. So it's basically you want to channel that same discipline into something which is more impactful and personal into our lives. And then also one thing as well, I really love what Aunty Jamilah shared as well, is one of the lessons that I learned from this, for me, is that it's never too late. So yeah, we may have had some missteps along the way, and I think every single parent can relate to this. We all feel that we are not enough. We all feel that we're making these flaws. Maybe our relationship's not as great as it could be. Maybe I'm spending too much time at work, and so on and so forth. But how you got through these challenges, you thrived through them, and you thrived because of in overcoming those challenges, and you turn that to your advantage. So, mashallah, that's really inspiring for me. And as well, the last part, I love that last part as well, is recruiting your husband as the partner to achieve great things together. So, mashallah, I think just this part alone, I think there are a lot of benefits from this, mashallah. Barakallah fikum. So, mashallah. So, yes, alhamdulillah, this was really good. So, but let's get into the meat of our discussion. Onward to our discussion subject today, parenting struggles in the digital age. No, I'm just curious, like the title of the book that Aunty published, like the leadership in parenting, right? So perhaps maybe we can start off with this. What does it mean to have leadership in parenting? Because it's kind of there are two contexts to this. It's kind of difficult to relate that, because people think like leadership. People always have this kind of stereotypical mind and perception on what leadership is, right? They think about Steve Jobs, they think about Mahathir, they think about Elon Musk, they think about Nelson Mandela, right? What does this have to do with me being a father or a mother, So it's kind of like, so that's one aspect. And also, it's kind of difficult for us to be thinking like this. And I really love the word that you use, like purposeful parenting. But it's kind of difficult to think of proactive and purposeful when we're kind of struggling to stay afloat. So that's what a lot of parents are going through into COVID. So maybe we can start with that. What does this mean in practice, leadership in parenting?
Yeah, I think this is a question that has always been nagging in many people. Can leadership be equipped in a family environment? And that's why if you look at lots of parenting, either books or articles, it's focusing about helping people and parents and fathers and mothers on managing the day-to-day and the struggle that they had to do with their children, either giving the food, making sure they study, discipline them, and that sort of things. But when you get so caught up in these day-to-day matters, you may lose sight to what is the real reason why we all are doing what we are supposed to do. You see?
Mm.
Because to me, when you have what I would, or if for many people, the big, hairy, audacious goal, when you have that clarity in your mind, you know where is the vision leading to what you are doing, then whatever struggle that you are doing, you find meaning in what you are doing.
Ooh, I love that.
Uh,
I love that term they use as well. Big, hairy, audacious goal. BHAG. I think that's from the book Built to Last, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
Right?
the Good to Great by Jim Collins then.
Good to great, mashallah.
Yeah, because I think, you see, because when sometimes we do not have these superordinate goals, that's why we become, we feel hopeless, we feel helpless, and we're not sure whether it's doing the right thing or not. So,
right, kind of like firefighting, isn't it, Uncle?
yeah, I mean, you see, just like you guys, you got busy every day doing things, but you don't know where you are heading. But if you know where you are heading, and you know that when you are heading that way, there are certain milestones that you must achieve, but beware that there are obstacles, struggles that you have to face. Now, obviously, you are more mentally prepared. You know, and so that is a typical project. But a child is so unique. Some child has a prodigy, so genius. Also, people struggling. Yang tak genius pun also struggling.
That's a good point.
Yang, you know, and then some are good in certain areas, some are not in certain areas, and we all try to, you know, make it like a factory that everybody is an assembly line, must have the same kind of output. No, I mean, human beings, they are unique by itself, and are we really spotting the talent amongst our children, for instance? So if they are not so good in mathematics, but they do well in their language, so how do we harness? How do we then help them? And because sometimes we want them to achieve everything, then they themselves felt that, oh, I'm not good enough like my sister, my younger brother is. So, and when parents do this kind of comparison, you can imagine, you know, you can compare a compressor with compressor A and B. That's fine. They don't talk to you. Children, they have emotions, they have psychology, and you must be aware that you have a real pivotal role. But I wanted to highlight to you all what is the basis of why we are talking this based on this leadership, right? Maybe Auntie can comment.
I just wanted to interject in response to your question to Faisal.
Yep.
You see, this is a very common scenario where, you know, parenting, when we raise children, we have to repeat a lot of things, right? It's repetition. Today,
there's a mundanity to it.
It feels very mundane. Things like washing the clothes and putting them out to dry, and just feeding the children, and, you know, even throwing away the rubbish, and reading to the children. I had this father, a young father, who came to me once, and he said he was very excited when he was expecting his firstborn. But then by the time he got a second child, Auntie, dia kata, I don't know why I feel this way. I rasa macam dah tak ada apa lah. Nothing to look forward to. It's like very mundane. So that came from a father, from a young father.
Oh, so the mundanity kind of like exhausted him, is it?
Been there, done that.
What's all this? And then I also had a young mother who echoed the same sentiment on another separate occasion. She said to me, you know, my child, who's about 2 years, she kept asking me to read the same book. You know how children are when they like book, when they like.
Okay.
Can you please read this to me?
Yep.
You know,
Totally can relate.
If it's just a 2-year-old child, maybe she can't really speak much, but you know from her gestures that she wants you to read that book. And she gets bored, she's tired, the mother is bored, mother is tired, and it's like she finds it irritating that the child is asking her to read the same book again and again. So what I'm trying to say is that if you do not have a long-term view, all these things that you have to repeat again and again and again, you don't know the meaning of it.
Wow.
You know? And that's where you lose focus, because other things become exciting and the home front becomes more of an irritation to you, because you don't
that's true. The
is this going? It's the same thing again. That's what we mean by operational parenting. You don't see the meaning, the purpose. What am I doing for?
Right.
So let me just illustrate to you the reason how this book came into the picture is we were on a train ride from London to Sheffield to conduct parenting talks to a student there. So Uncle and Auntie had this exactly same conversation. We found out that parents are just busy running around this bread and butter, struggling with yelling and screaming and nagging. It doesn't seem to be working. So what is it that is causing this? So I was reflecting on my corporate world that many of the managers are just so busy with their paperwork, shoving and here and there. But then at the end of the year, a lot of activity, but no real productivity.
Right. A lot of distance, no displacement. Can I put it that way?
So then when we say, what does the Quran talks about it? And I think that's where one of the greatest inspiration comes in. And this is where I'm sharing my slide now. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. So I think this is what we are trying to work out, because I think more and more, and I think very importantly is that how consistent the Quran is. I mean, it's so consistent, and it is not instructing us. In fact, it is in the form of a doa that all of you would have read it. Al-Furqan 74 kan, Rabbana hablana min azwajina wa zurriyatina qurrata a'yun waja'alna lil muttaqina imama. So I think that gives us this, what I would say, the superordinate reason, that purpose. Bearing in mind, we repeat that hablana is a gift. Oh Allah, grant us the gift. It's not just, so when you have a gift, that's where you make do and make the best out of it. So it's so consistent now that if you want them to become lil muttaqina imama, that don't it resonate well with what Allah punya dialogue with the angels on wanting to have a Khalifa? Don't you think that this is the kesinambungan or the continuity of our role to become khaira ummah and to benefit back the ummah? So now, from this inspiration, this ayat really make us and put us onto the position that we have no choice but to raise leaders. Then, if you have that in mind, the conversation with the children, your day-to-day activity, the struggle that you say now suddenly change into a different approach. Let me ask you this question now. In your office, you got your young talent and young potential leaders.
Yeah.
You treat them differently, right? You give them some form of new project or initiative, and you then coach them. You really want them to be mentored properly. So if you look at the corporate world now and bring it to the God send you talent from your own blood and DNA, aren't you not going to do something different? Now, so when that hits into each and every parent, then they know that this is not just any job, not just any role, not just any task. Because when we develop this model, and we say, let's make it simple for some people, because some people like models, some people don't like models. So, okay, fine, we work in between. So we came up to this hierarchy of successful parenting, and knowing that, okay, this is not to follow Maslow, but it's just a simplified way. So we say that the foundation must be very clear. Husband and wife, strong relationship. No if, no but. But having said that, we do recognize single parent has its role, because even in the Quran, they recognize right from Prophet Isa alayhi salam and others who have also successfully in the history raised children single-handedly. But again and again, in a nutshell, this is a very key important ingredient. And then the physical is what majority of us are giving to our children, which I said earlier, the roof, the food on the table, and then sending to school. We've done well on that, providing that. But we pick and choose when we come to the third level, which is connecting the holistic needs of a human person, depending on where we are, depending on how strong we are, depending on what resources we have. So whether it's spiritual, and Aunty Jamilah will talk more about this dimension. But what I would like to say, you as the parent is the front line, as the first line of defense and the last line of defense for the children when they are going to be raised physically, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually and intellectually. So we play that role. How do we do that? That's I will share in the separate model tips of you could then stimulate as you go along. But when they reach to the level where they want to develop their personal aspiration, we play that role as a talent developer. We want their passion to grow, because each and every one of us Allah has given something extra. Some of us struggle so hard in maths, while others, they don't even study, don't even do homework. They just sit and yet they score. I mean, that's where we have to recognize the uniqueness of each one. But when we help them to reach their aspiration, it doesn't stop there. That's the leadership now comes into the picture. We want to inspire them to become the leading with impact for who? For the ummah. That's where we are now. Now we are reliving and continuing what the Quran says. And in this book, leadership is defined at least 3 levels. I was asked the question in Japan. A mother said, "Don't see my son as a leader." Yes, I agree that leaders are defined like the one who head in organization, company, or even nation. There's only one job. I mean, you can't struggle too much. That's one way of defining leadership, and there are people that Allah gave that capability. There are others like leadership in your own specific areas, in your own expertise. So who is the best Nobel Prize winner on nanotechnology, on biotechnology? Who is the renowned? So they are leaders in their own. So that's another way of defining leaders. Another way of defining leaders is that we raise them having the qualities of a leader. And sometimes maybe it's just honesty. This is like how when Khalifa Umar Al-Khattab walking along the street, hearing a girl defending how a customer's right on having the right proportion against the view of the mother, of the milk, the quantity. So I think that's really a leadership quality. That's even a character that, irrespective of what our child going to be, either a mechanic or postman or a teacher, they have the quality of leaders. And they then at a certain situation would be depend upon to take up that leadership role in that situation.
So I like the way, Uncle, you put like leadership it's always there in our own capacity, in our own space. There will always be position of leadership, regardless if you're a postman or mechanic, like you mentioned. MashaAllah, I really like that. And also the way that you link role of a human beings as a Khalifa in his life, in this world, to some effective parenting. And one of this is the model you showed here. Yeah, I just wanted to have a bit of explanation from your side. Yeah, because just now Aunty Jamilah mentioned about like sometimes the reason why parents don't follow up on the next child, the subsequent child, is because maybe they lose focus, or maybe they're not living up to the task. Yeah, could that just be something of like a lack of passion, or is it something like a frustration in waiting to reap the rewards? Can it also be in that angle?
I think it's just the mundaneness of doing things, and it could be anything, to be honest. You keep asking yourself, what's the point of doing this again and again, and where am I going? it's like the excitement is no longer there, because we have to remember as parents, this is not a sprint. When we build a marriage, a strong relationship with our spouse, and when we nurture children, when we nurture them, we grow them. For us to achieve anything, for us to see any achievement, significant achievement, it takes months, years, and many years. It could be decades. You see, it's not something that you feel, it's not like sitting for a test and then the next 2 weeks you see, wow, you get A or B. And then the next milestone and next milestone. It's not like that at all. So it's something like, I believe we have to be very clear in our mind. This is a marathon. This is a marathon. And it's something that you have to build, and you only see the results many, many, many years later, to be honest. If you get married at the age of like this 22, your eldest child, you get the first child at 23, your eldest child 10 years later is just 10. You can't really see, you know, maybe you can see some kind of academic achievements, maybe, but if you think of it as a plant, growing a plant, it takes many, many years.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That fruit. You see, so I think that is the main challenge when we try to raise children, being able to keep the long-term view and this belief in us as Muslims that at the end of the day, even if you put in effort, despite your best effort, things don't really work out the way you want. Every single, even the smallest effort, Allah will reward you.
MashaAllah, brilliant. MashaAllah, brilliant.
I just want to pick up something, Auntie, in your conclusion of the book, Cool Boy, Super Sons. I love this conclusion. This is actually something quite similar to the theme of the flywheel in the book, Good to Great, which Uncle Ahmad references now, right? So you mentioned in the end here that boys change when they see why they need to. Breakthroughs happen when you least expect it. So I love this point. It's like there are points where in our parenting journey, we feel like giving up, but just hold on a bit longer and then you'll see those things just happening in times that you never expect.
That's very true. When I do research for a book, I reflect on my personal experience as well as a basis, but I know that personal experiences are not enough to write a book. So we do research.
Right.
I would do research and see how that probably explains my experience as well as other people's experiences. And I know it's not easy. It's very, very hard actually. Raising children is the hardest things. It's the hardest challenge that you have to do, because nobody is going to, give you a bouquet of flowers. Well done. Nobody.
This is coming from a programmer, yeah. For context of our listeners, this is the hardest thing.
From a math whiz genius, yeah.
Yeah.
Faisal, from our experience with our 6 children, they are now aged 23 to 36.
Wow.
MashaAllah.
Let me put you into perspective. You will have to wait at least between 20 to 25 years old to see that the fruits of what you have invested, that you have put in, where you can see that they are already making the effect as a matured person.
And for them to express some form of gratitude for what you have done, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's that long.
Yeah, it takes that long because, like anything, diamond needs to be pressured, lemonade has to be squeezed, to get the juice and to get the right thing. But not, of course, we are not going to squeeze and pressure our children, but it's to show that you need that kind of situation where you are being tested. You are being tested as parents.
And on the flip side, it also brings us some positivity. Like, it's not too late because the goal is still far away. It's not too late to start something up.
It's not too late.
But by the way, this early and late is relative. By the way, just because New Zealand got the first sunlight and we got it several hours later, does it mean Malaysia is late?
Oh, brilliant, mashallah, like that.
I mean, it shows that it is not time yet.
Yeah, that's good.
That's why Allah shows, even in flowers, there are some blooms early in the morning, some at midnight, the raffles, so you got to wait at the right time. But it's how they are. And I, uncle and auntie, when we have our 6 children, and each and every one, came from the same mother, I offer the same food, live in the same house, but they came up with their own unique, different ways of what they want to achieve in their life. But our job as parents is to help them, handhold them, so that then they don't slip away, they don't, distracted and detour to other pathway. But the point is that we allow them to discover what exactly, why they are being born. I said to them, there are 2 important days in their life. The day you are born and the day you discover why you are born.
Wow, mashallah.
So once you can discover that, then obviously you will really going to maximize. You're going to really leverage. So if you become an engineer, you're just not any engineer. If you become a doctor, you just not become just another statistic. But you really now represent the way that Islam wants you to be. Either creating new things or inventing new products, or this is what we are. This is how a leader's mind. And then when they want to improve things, a Muslim is better today than yesterday, then will be better from tomorrow than today. So I think in that spirit, our children will be in continuous kaizen. We don't need to have the Japanese to tell us, because it's already in the way we do things.
I want to touch about that breakthrough thing to Faisal that you mentioned. You see, it's so important to have hope when we are, because when you raise children, it's a given that there will be some kind of unpleasant moments when you have decisions that they might not like. Sometimes they don't understand why you're doing what you are doing. But the real test of the pudding is when they are no longer with you, when they are already in, and what kind of life they lead, what kind of relationship you have, then you would know whether
sustainable.
Whether you have done that successfully or not. But to me, again and again, success is not in the result itself. If the result shows, alhamdulillah. If the result doesn't show it, the effort, Allah knows.
That's a good point, mashallah.
Mashallah. That's right.
We are not, despite whatever efforts that you put in, sometimes things still don't turn out right. But we know that we are not going to measure the child at 10, 20, even 30, at 40.
Yeah.
Right.
Could be that the child will make a turnaround at age 50, even when we are no longer around. So that we need to have that hope and optimism, very, very important for me. Breakthrough, there will be some breakthroughs, maybe small, maybe big. So you just keep on doing the right thing. And relationship strong with Allah as well as with the child. And also between husband and wife, very important to keep tabs so that you don't run down each other, support one another.
That's a good point. MashaAllah. There are 2 important takeaways here, mashallah. So one of the things I realized is, so it's important for us to realize, to keep that big picture in mind, keep your eyes on that prize, yeah? So I think that 20-year mark that Uncle's reminding us, that's a super important reminder for us. Be patient. The fruits of your labor, as Auntie said, even the fruits might not even come, because as Muslims, we believe that even the prophets were tested with children which are didn't turn out the way that they wanted it to be. Let's look at the sons of Yaqub, right? The brothers of Yusuf. And so one of the things that I try to remind myself as well is, like, for example, when I'm dealing with the challenges, like, for example, my tantrum of my 3-year-old son, which happens a lot. So it's not something new. So I think everyone goes through this. And I always remind myself that I want to treat him in such a way that this is something I want to be with him, be present with him, put up with those uncomfortable feelings, because I want to raise him in a way that when he grows up, he'll be open to share his feelings with me. I want that relationship that Yusuf used to have with Yaqub. So that's kind of the eye on the prize that I always remind myself.
Yeah. But you manage your expectation because Allah has His grand design. Because the love between Yaqub and Yusuf was not a fairy tale story, but Allah put sense of reality. Had he not dove into the well, had Yusuf not sold into the slavery, had it not gone into the house of where he is being tested by the lady of the house, had it not been in jail, had it not made that prediction, he would have not met the king who finally appointed him as the Menteri Khazanah, who then so you can see now how Allah grand design that you and I cannot see. I mean, I cannot see when we struggle with some of the children that we had, you know, they grew up, whether it's their physical health, whether their cognitive thinking process, or whether behavioral and that sort of things. So Allah wanted to show us in the powerful story of Yaqub and Yusuf is that I have a grand design. You may plan what you want, but I have a much more meaningful design of his plan. So again, managing that expectation is quite an important, but not losing hope, like what Yaqub had. You know, one of the gems that we must take away from Prophet Yaqub is that he spoke twice when he lost his son twice by saying Fasabrun Jamil. So that Fasabrun Jamil is such a powerful mantra for all parents, you know, when they come to this point, especially those who have put a lot of effort. I've given you so much food. I've given you so much this. Why are you not behaving like that, your cousin and that sort of things?
Right.
I mean, it really you are in full control of the boy or the daughter? So I think those are some conscious questions that we need to take as being parents, because we knew deep in our heart that, oh Allah, you give me, this is a gift to me. I want to raise him like a leader. When you do that in your mindset with your wife, then the conversation of getting that toy, of extending hours of the digital, of looking at why do we need to greet this elderly person or do good deeds is a totally different conversation. It's not becoming like a show, you know. Why do I have to take the rubbish and not this young guy? This young guy is food free. You know, that conversation is a conversation just to build sibling rivalry instead of harmony, but a conversation that brings you to a leadership, to become a leader, is definitely a different punya dinner table conversation. Honestly, guys. Honestly.
I like just now one of the points Uncle Aunty brought about like some of the litmus tests, right? You see how well you have raised your children is when they're no longer with you, yeah? And I give a lot of thoughts to that every day, because alhamdulillah, I'm blessed with 3 daughters, and I love them to bits, yeah? So I always, in my head, it's like, alhamdulillah, but this is a time for me that I can have their circle of influence. I have the primary share in their circle of influence, but there'll come a time when, alhamdulillah, if Allah give them risky to get married, so their circle of influence will shift suddenly. So I always tell them, like, if you want to be for a daughter, mashallah, this is the best time for you to spend the best maximum time with us, because we will love you as much as we can, but there will come a time later on that share will have to be shifted, and that's when you get, if Allah bless you with a husband, that's when it shifted. And when that comes to thought, yeah, sometimes I always have like a timeline. Say, okay, I gotta do by 5 years, by 1 year, by 5 years, by 10 years, because eventually, if Allah permits and they get married, so they would have a different focus, and hopefully whatever I've educated them in their young will stick to them, and do it to their own family, inshallah. But I give a lot of thoughts to that, and sometimes it makes me feel a bit emotional, because when your daughters grow up, it's a bit different. It's not like boys. I'm a son, and until today I'll take 100% of my parents' advice all the time. But when but it's a bit different for my wife, because it's just the nature of life. So I have a bit like a time frame sometimes.
2 things here, Amir, about emotions. Actually, whether we like it or not, being parents, it's a highly emotional job, because they are our children and we raise them from young. So there are a lot of expectations. And it's different. You see, you imagine yourself, if you were a neighbor or a teacher to a child versus you being a parent to the same child, your perspectives might not be the same. Because by virtue of them being our own flesh and blood, we feel very responsible, very accountable. And naturally, there is a tendency to, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, how we respond to certain situations. For instance, when a child does a mistake, whether we let the emotions run through us to the extent that we have an outburst, for example, okay? But you have to think that at the same time, it's the emotion of love that motivates us to do something to express that love in a more meaningful way. How to guide the child and being restrained in our frustration and not to over the top, vent out to the extent that the focus has shifted from that mistake to our own anger, for example. Okay?
Right.
That's one. The other thing is having 4 children who are already married. It's not a matter of, I mean, this is our experience. It could be something else for other people. We have 1 daughter only and 5 sons, and the daughter is already married. Yes, it is true that when they are married, they set up their own branch, and of course, they have bigger commitments to the spouse and to the in-laws. But at the same time, I find that if there are ways and means where you keep that relationship growing, it still grows. It's not like once you are married, you're cut off. It's not like that at all. Because they still come back to us for advice, for this and for that, and we have specific channels, like we have the big group in the family, and then we have personal groups. If they, even for me and my sons, and I know my husband does that too. Sometimes one of them will just contact us. They need one-to-one advice as per their relationship between the spouse or whatever they want with their children. And sometimes you can help them, sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's just beyond us, something that you're not familiar with.
Right.
So our own experience is that, yes, what I'm trying to say is that Ame is something positive. When I know that feeling of letting go is not easy. Now they are on a different territory with in-laws and that. But alhamdulillah, our experience has been positive. It's how we deal with them right from the start. When they look for a spouse, they will consult us. And even at that moment, as you guide them, it actually strengthens the trust between you and them. Because you leave it their decision, but at the same time, if what you say makes sense, then they are more likely to respect and abide by your guidance.
MashaAllah. Very encouraging words, Auntie and Uncle. MashaAllah.
Very positive so far, alhamdulillah.
Okay.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Yeah, just to wrap this up as well about the idea about the flywheel, MashaAllah, like the results you don't see until the very end. And the example that Uncle brought to illustrate that point, Yusuf, it's only towards like many, many decades of his life that you see him as Al-Aziz, the minister, right? But you've gone through all those moments in your life. And actually every moment of those struggles make that person who they are. And you don't see that breakthrough yet. So, mashallah, I mean, it takes a lot of patience and sometimes, inshallah, put your trust in Allah. And so maybe, inshallah, maybe we can bounce into the topic that we wanted to speak about, we want to emphasize now. It's about the challenges of trying to nurture this in this digital age that we're in right now. Now, just put some context as well. Before the pandemic, a lot of parents were kind of trying to wean off the dependency in their gadgets, including my wife and I, actually. In fact, actually, Uncle Aunty, I was just discussing with my wife, like what we can talk about in this discussion, right? So my wife reminded me that she still remembers the time that we met you, because we wanted to consult you about having the parenting course in Miri. And this was back in 2015. And then I remember one of the things that really stood out from that conversation was that you said that during the dinner tables, all the phones are on the table, if I'm not mistaken. And who looks at the phone has to pay for the dinner. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just curious right now. Like, so now the pandemic, right? Suddenly gadgets have become like the go-to tool, right? Even to go to school, even for education, right? So, I'm just wondering now that we're growing out of this, inshallah, hoping growing out of this pandemic era and this phase of digital dependencies, how can we extract wisdoms from that? And has your stance on this, this lack of trying to distance ourselves from that digital kind of dependency during dinner? Has that kind of make a shift or changed since then?
No, it has not. There is a slide that I want to show all of you, Faisal, Ame, and Aziz. But before that, you see, and I'm jumping the gun a little bit. After this, I will explain about the 7 domains of child outcomes, because it will give very specific areas where which we have to respond to. All right, back to the question: is it still valid? Right, dinner time, no gadget and whatnot. Yes, of course it is. It is still very valid, because you see, when you look back, and to me, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is always our best role model. When we look at Surah Al-Qalam, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, wa innaka la'ala khuluqin azim, and you, Muhammad, are of exalted character, right? This is something, pandemic or no pandemic, digital era or no digital era, we can always return for inspiration and motivation on how to raise people, on how to raise children, how to engage with people. At the end of the day, today we have pandemic, today we have gadgets and Wi-Fi, and we don't know what's going to happen in the next generation. There will always be some kind of challenge we have to deal with. But there's one thing that holds true: we are dealing with human beings. And as human beings, our children, they need inspiration, they need engagement. Engagement means real human interaction, right? We cannot, it doesn't matter how advanced we are in terms of gadget or smartphones or whatnot. There is this basic need of interacting with adults, with other children. So that can make or break your parenting, how to raise children. If we look at the brain development of children, you mentioned, Faisal, that your child is 3 years old.
Yeah.
Actually, the fastest growth development occurs below the age of 4. That means from 0 to 3 is very, very fast, right? And gadgets cannot replace that need for speech development. For instance, we know that despite, we see parents, in supermarkets and restaurants, because they want to frighten their babies, even 2 years old, they buy the gadget again, and all those images and very fast things really capture the baby's attention.
Right.
But we also know what happens when you do that. What happens over time, very regularly. When there is no real interaction between children, between the babies, the infants, and other adults, their language development is stunted. Because you cannot teach children how to speak by just giving them gadgets. Forget about those young Einstein programs. In fact, yesterday, while researching for this session, I came across a report, but I did not save that. It says that there is this young Einstein program. It's kind of games that's made for 2-year-olds. It has been shown to have adverse effects on the development of children's brains. So we have to keep that in mind when we are deciding whether to give or not to give. But at the end of the day, we have to know the difference between education versus entertainment content. What is the content that
that's a good one.
You see, this is not a matter of black and white, whether to give or not to give.
Right.
If you give the gadget or something that distracts the child, what is the content of that you are giving?
Yeah.
What is the effect on that child? You see? So I know that some people would say, tak apalah, it's okay, bagilah 2-3, but for me and Uncle Fakhri here, we feel that there are certain guidelines. For instance, meal times, you should not be looking at the gadget, because that's the time when that's the time when you need to interact with the child, and you need to grow their brains through intellectual development, not serious kind of interaction, but it's creating those bonds, long-term view, like what we said just now, rather than feeling that, oh, this is just another time you need to rush, and you don't want the children to have to rush through the meals so that they can get back to their games, for instance. That's something, when you notice these kind of things, there's something not quite right there, and children shouldn't have to compete with the gadgets for your attention.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It should not, because that's their right. Why do we work in the first place, right? We, of course, we want to climb the corporate ladder, we want to do well. And of course, that's one of the ways that we can inspire our children. But it's what we are saying here is that there has to be structure in the family. What does structure mean? I know that this is kind of abstract term. Structure means, number one, the kids feel that there is order at home. Order at home doesn't mean that 8 o'clock you have to have breakfast, 10 o'clock you have to do homework and all that, but not necessarily as rigid as that.
Not a regime.
Not a regime, but something that makes them feel stable. Maknanya meal times is a safe time where you want to interact with the parents make the children feel welcome, the children, it's in unhurried way. Although I know, with one child, wow, and the other, but try to keep calm no matter what, although it's difficult. I know it's difficult, especially especially for the mothers, all right? But coming back to this question, about whether the digital is really something that is a struggle. I'm sure it is a struggle. But if I would like to draw your attention to this big picture. This is something new that we came up with, is the 7 domains of child outcomes. And when we are talking about child outcomes, we are talking about the long-term view again and again. So the word outcomes, we can replace it with intelligence or literacies. That means physical intelligence, physical literacy, acumen. Yeah, that is also possible. But if you look here, the center one is spiritual. Spiritual because for us as Muslims, that is the basis, that is our belief system, right? So this is like the roots. And when we talk about young children, young parents, we know that our career progression happens when we are raising young children as well. So that's why it's the most challenging times. It helps to keep in view that brain development as well as the belief system in a child occurs the strongest when they are young, you see? So I feel that if we were to keep that in mind, then we'll be more mindful of what we are doing right now. Again, content versus time. How much time you are spending on that content, or is it educational or entertainment based? All right. So it's always back to these 4 things that you have to consider, right? It's not a black and white thing. Okay, if we go back to the spiritual, and from there, spiritual is like the roots. The roots, you are growing a plant. The stronger the roots are, the easier you will deal with all these 6 other things, right? So physical, what does physical mean? What happens if we do not pay attention to the physical domain or physical intelligence, like kids not doing their exercise, not just sitting there in front of their iPads or smartphones or gadgets. You get busy, bangun-bangun, they just start main game. The whole day, for instance, right? So tempting. If you're not supposed to go out, so it becomes a real danger that when this habit is in place, it gives way to obesity and inactivity. And we know how easy it is with all the too good to be true Malaysian food, right? We are just spoiled with food. Plus spending hours in front of the gadget. So what do we as parents, what do we do in a practical sense? Number one, of course, we have to be the role model. And then we have to do things in such a way that we instill that motivation and confidence for the child to live a life that has physical activity.
Okay.
if we look at the Europe punya itu, a child needs at least 3 hours of physical activity.
Yeah, in Finland.
Young children, all right?
Per day, you mean? Oh,
Per day.
Wow.
Ah.
wow. That's
why,
mashallah.
that's why at minus 21 degrees in Finland, children outside, because to them is that it's not a matter of what is the temperature outside, it's what you wear that is important to protect yourself. So
Wow, mashallah.
then adjust. So, but
Right.
I want to bring down Aunty punya 7 domains ni into some practicality. So if you imagine you have a trip with your children and you consciously consider these elements in your trip.
Okay.
Because that's how you can build it. So a good example I would share with you is that when Auntie and Uncle bawa the children to New Zealand, we assign each children with a role.
Wow.
Someone, that was from 8 years old, Siraj was then, and then Alia, 14. So Siraj was the airport controller, you know. So I just hold the passport, but I asked Siraj, you tell me which counter to go, which gate to go, and all those things. So you assign.
Mashallah.
So that's, you can put the element of physical and element of social is that I said to anyone, if you want to sit either window or aisles, you have to negotiate with Siraj.
All right.
So then you give him that opportunity to then manage the social aspect of this.
And he was 8 years old at the time.
And then Sharif then he was asked to become the gadget boy because of all the electric plug, and more importantly is I said, Sharif, we want you to take note of the Qiblat. So gadget was another part of him. So then he became, obviously when you've got responsibility, you take it seriously in the prayer time, the salat time, and so you assign with them. So that spiritual came into the nature. I think Safi was about 12, 13. So Safi was the kind of a program manager. So that then I said to him, so from one city to another city, what time will we arrive? So that then we plan our way so that when we stop for prayer, Sharif tells us the time, then and then when do we plan to have our food and that sort of things. And by the way, knowing that Alia wanted to become a doctor, then we say, Alia, you become the paramedic, so you handle in case any injury. But because everybody was having this, was very, very well behaved and no one got hurt, then I assigned her to become an accountant. So every single transaction, masukkan duit minyak, beli stock over, makan, and then, buy things at the supermarket. So she then account, okay, what is our today punya? What is our cumulative? Now, and the whole family will just have to clean up the motorhome. We did it with the motorhome instead of staying.
Okay. A camper van. Okay.
Camper van from North Island to South Island. But that whole episode, you can see them learning about the Maori culture. Along the way, you stimulate their minds on planning and that sort of things. They still have to meet. They see Malaysian then, and then all the maintaining the spiritual element so that Islam is dynamically living, whether you are, and that's where they learn about Jama' and Qasar. They learn about maintaining relationship with Allah is always there. And then making sure that their emotional well-being constantly by giving short tazkirah, look at the mountain. This is where then you can pick the theme of the Quran and say, MashaAllah, how balanced and how Allah has built this universe. So I think again and again, you see, I've not even talked about gadget inside that.
Subhanallah, subhanallah.
Yeah.
No, Uncle, this is a tiny tip, especially school holidays is just a month away. Parents, this is a really good tip.
So every visit to wherever we go now, there is a conscious effort, as simple as I wanted to improve their BM because they studied in international school for that matter. How do I do that? So I said to everyone, we're going to go to Malacca, we're going to visit Rumah Malaysia, And then from there on, we go from house to house, rumah Melaka, rumah Perak, rumah Selangor and those sort of things. And inside there, we can see Jala. So this is what Jala is. This is what Tempayan is. This is what Bubu is.
Getting in touch with the Malay culture.
Malay culture. So that's a language also for that matter. So why some of the peribahasa? So again and again, yes, it has certainly put an effort. At that time, tak banyak lah nak buat internet and apa all those things. But again and again, you know, you can make this whole thing a very fun, a very engaging. You know, you can still give gadget time, so allocated. But what I wanted to emphasize is that you can then use gadget. So okay, tonight
to enhance that.
So instead of Maghrib and Isha, you can always use time to look for some YouTube good videos, and not necessarily ceramah, but some good discoveries, either for Animal Planet and that sort of thing. So Uncle has 3 levels of question. If I want to ask, if I feel that they are into it, you know. So what do you think of that we watch, whether it's TED Talk or not, depending on the age of maturity? And then you can ask also about their opinion. You know, why is this happening? So then this is all about, you know, whatever you call it, the kebat ke, kemahiran berfikir atas tinggi ke, or you want to think about critical thinking ke. So there are so many ways, but what I want to remind is that don't do like you and I would spend 1.5 hours watching ceramah. The children ni make it short. 10 minutes is already long for them. You know, so short and sweet, but meaningful, because they may not say it then, but further down the road they say, you remember or not that we watched this, or you remember
wow, I love those moments. Yeah,
so those are, in my opinion, where you know that that's it's like dripping the water drop by drop, you know, instead of throwing the whole 1 hour, you send them the barrage of you should not be, thou shalt do it. Now you have done it.
Commandments after commandments.
Off, dia kata, I mean, it's just another, you know, verbal diarrhea from that, you know.
Okay.
My brain.
Yeah, I love this, Uncle, because you turn the every vacation into an educational opportunity that engages all those 7 spheres that Auntie spoke about: the emotional, the financial, the spiritual, like every single aspect. Because, you know, as parents, the tendency of us is that when we go vacation, that developmental mind we put it on the shelf for a while, you know. Kind of like, but what you do is like everyone learns. I love this, mashallah.
Lawatan sambil belajar.
Oh, mashallah, indeed. 100%.
And you know what? Let me tell you, seriously, we also learn from them. You look at certain things, but they look, their insight is different. And that's where the power, and of course, Auntie and Uncle, we encourage them to speak. So like, for instance, in the car traveling from one location, instead of, okay, they got their books to read, and sometimes then we can also organize a simple topic. So what's your opinion now? So at one time when my sister was there, who's a teacher, so we had in Toastmasters, we have table topic session, impromptu speech. So then they gave the title, what will happen if you abolish school? Obviously it's a sensitive question for a teacher in the car. But it allows the children to express themselves, putting their thoughts, to shape their views. You see, we think is right, you know, school where even the first ayat of Jibril is Iqra and not Khalifah or is Amanah or Taqwa, you know, it's Iqra. Because from only that moment that you then understand what does Taqwa means, what does Amanah means, and this sort of thing. So I think that is the moment what Jamilah and I did, we talk about teachable point of view, you know.
Okay.
You can just step in just in time, just like the wahyu came. You know, things was right in the middle that Allah sent that message, you know.
Right.
So you are the one that now replacing that moment by interjecting that, not too much, because after some time they say, dah datanglah khutbah Jumaat hari ni kan. You know? millennial, their attention span is short.
Yeah, we are still talking about the parenting struggles, right? Taking the perspective of the digital devices. It is a fact that in digital devices, there are immense benefits you can get from that. It has been proven that children who have learning difficulties, disabilities, using computers help. But the thing is, with us, it's more like a lot of parents, it appear they see other parents dishing out the smartphones, the digital devices, the gadgets, and they feel pressured into doing the same without really understanding why they're doing it and what are the implications. So I think we need to have a real understanding. What am I giving to my child? Is it appropriate? What is it doing to the brain development, to the well-being of the child? That means it's not just a matter of giving, know what you're doing, because at the end of the day, we are answerable to what we are doing. The child doesn't know. You know,
That's true.
has no clue, has no inkling of what it's doing to the brain, whether it's good for the education, does it, is it thought-provoking, does it improve his memory skills, or other skills that need to be developed, understanding. I mean, we ourselves, I like to spend a time with my granddaughter apart from activities to watch some videos, good stories like
Oxford Owl.
Oxford Owl. There are books, the e-books, you know, that can just read to her again and again while I sit there, or just within distance, I can hear what the book is reading, so she can move at pace. And we started doing that when she was 5. I think about the age of 5.
Yeah.
I listened to Oxford Owl, and there are good story videos like The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Yeah,
I have that. I love that. Yeah.
Caterpillar. It's not just about shoes. Actually, it's about a concept. It's about helping people, no matter who they are.
Right.
As a parent, if we are not there, nobody is going to tell the child this is not just about giving shoes.
That's true. SubhanAllah.
You know, helping people. It's actually actively teaching the child about discrimination. You know, jangan pandang kulit orang ni. This is
colorism.
Yeah.
So it's called colorism.
It's not told in the story, but that's what parents do.
That's what you can extract. Right.
Really.
Right. So if I understand this correctly, Auntie, the key word here is mindfulness. Did I get that right? Like understand what you want from it and what are the risks and benefits from anything that you do, even if it's a simple physical book, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know we are inching in closing, but then I wanted to take from what Auntie said in terms of making sure that what can we turn our struggle to something that it becomes an endearing moment for them. Is it a struggle moment? Is it a moment? And we still talk about the proactive, because the book, both book talks about the proactive measure. And Uncle wanted to share with you the model of what we put in the book. Then this is the model we put. Can you see my slide now?
Yep,
Yes.
can, yeah.
So what we did was, again, being an engineer and trying to structure things, we talk about that 20 odd years old. So if you put that, and many have asked about the 7 years phasing, whether it's from Sayyidina Ali, but whichever it comes from, you make yourself at least have an extra focus on being a nurturer, being the coach on the appropriate age. And again, this is just a guideline. It doesn't say that 6 years and 11 months I cannot become a coach. When appropriately the child needs that. So what I wanted to say is that at each year, for instance, that brain development is a lot more at the 0, 4, 6 years old. That's where you really want to expand their mind, because if you use the gadget, and it's already known by the neurosurgeon and the neurologist saying that if you just use one finger to just sort of move things and on the screen, it's only one part of the neuron area is being triggered. So the other parts are not being triggered. So your job with beyond just gadget. If you go and interact with nature, go and interact with flora and fauna, zoos, aquarium for fish and everything, that's where you could see that how the whole brain development with the sight, the hear, the sound, the smell really develops them. And I think this is what we want parents to be able to do with them. And research confirms both in UK and Australia, where the scientist is really until at the moment could not find the answer why when fathers read bedtimes or read books to the children, their vocabulary increase. Despite
Fathers
that,
specifically, yeah, Uncle?
yes. Yeah, fathers, yeah, because they did that study. When father reads or, of course, engage and communicate, the vocabulary of the children increases. Of course, mothers has their own vocabulary, go and clean your beds and, tidy up the room and this sort of thing. But father will come back and say, I think, in my opinion, the strategy, I mean, that probably why it increases. But again,
Yeah.
The engineer fathers, at least.
but what I wanted to say is that that's where you are in their radar screen. Fathers is in the radar screen because you take time with them. They know that you are busy, and they have been reinforced. Dad is tired. Dad is all those things. But the fact that Dad spend time with me, then I am a priority to him.
Wow, that's a good point. So it builds a lot of self-esteem, isn't it?
Yeah, it also have. That's where kalau you ask them to write their karangan, who is the most unforgettable character in this world? Would you think that they will write about us or Mo Saleh and Ronaldo?
That's so profound. SubhanAllah.
Okay.
Or we write about Iron Man or Batman, we don't know. Huh?
Yeah. So again, we are the one who's responsible to expose them. I mean, can't blame the children. They do visit their friends and they do watch all those things. But what conversation we have with them is going to change the way how they think. And especially the 713, we know very well the Prophet asked us to take a much more stronger affirmative action role of guiding them, embedding the values, So those things, the outdoor activities, the travel, cool, siru fil ard. Jalanlah kamu di dunia ini. So I talk about 6 thinking hacks because I wanted the children to have some cognitive exposure. We then expose them to some of the digital knowledge education and know the difference, entertainment and what not to do. So I think if you want to download the apps, download the apps done by the phone, but we download the apps of respect, the apps of amanah, the apps
there you
of
go.
us. We are the one who would be downloading the apps while we didn't know. Oh, we can also download the apps of apalah ni, all the dusty words that came to our mind in the time of, and they pick it up. They pick up that app.
Yeah.
You cakap sekali je. Dad boleh buat, kenapa I tak boleh buat? Why? Dad download it to us. Of downloading the apps kan. Now, if you have done well between these 2 stages, your third stage, which is the stage of day, is in a very challenging mode. I mean, this is really very clear because their body changes, kan?
Third stage, as in the teenage phase, right?
Teenage phase, the hormones, and they say, wow, this is the age of unreason and this sort of things. But if you have been their first and the last line of defense, I bet you they will come to see you. I bet you that you are someone that they will want to talk to. I bet you that you are the one that either not only reinforce the values that they suddenly see amongst their friends. They start to compare. They start to feel, how my friends, their parents divorced, how they had hard feeling with their siblings. But they know that the sanctuary that they have lived and grow and seeing you as not only the mentor but role model, and you really someone that they look up to. So
it's kind of a combination of those 2 phases then. Like what you've done there, that's what you'll see, the teenager, whatever challenges that you see, it's kind of like a manifestation of those years that you invested before that.
Yeah, and then at each year, you consciously have what output you want them. I put there, be a reader. So that's the iqra bit. And then be a speaker, ability to speak. Prophet Ibrahim at that age was able to speak out to his father as well as to the community at that age. And then as they become teens, you expose them to become the leader. Now that they have equipped with both knowledge and skills and ability to express and articulate their thoughts. So leadership becomes something that, yes, now I can take a smaller part. So whether you go for your holiday to give them some leadership mini role, or whether they are in their school taking up, encourage them, head of librarian or head of discipline. So you then be able to encourage and motivate them and use this gadget to add value to their knowledge. And when they leave the nest, by all means, you knew very well that they can soar high, fly high, not because where they are sitting on the top of the branch, whether it's Petronas, whether it's Shell, is because you have equipped them with the wings.
Oh, that's beautiful.
To fly to where they want to be. I think you now feel that you have, oh Allah, I am blessed with the gift that you have given to me, oh Allah. I have now do whatever I have put my effort together with my wife, my spouse, and now inshallah, ya Allah, guide him, ya Allah, in the next journey of him into the real world to be an independent and to become the leader of the ummah and contribute back to the ummah. So I think that wraps up the whole entire story line that we want to have in this journey of being a parent and see our children grown up then.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Uncle Aunty, I love this conversation. It's opened up so many different questions, but fortunately we've come towards the end. Oh man, you open up so many more questions. Maybe we'll have another time, inshallah. But maybe just to share with our listeners out there, including ourselves as well, what legacy do you want to leave behind? Maybe I can hear from both of you, Uncle and Auntie as well.
Ladies first, go.
Okay.
For me, the most important legacy that I want to leave my children is for them to be guided in their daily decisions, in their daily actions and thoughts, guided by the Quran and the Sunnah. I can't think of any bigger legacy. I hope that is the kind of message I am sending them, hopefully, and for that to continue down generations, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I hope.
MashaAllah, it's beautiful.
I think all parents want to make sure that when their children finally being matured and independent, they can stand on their own feet with strong values and principles. And you knew that you are the person who have planted the seed, make sure that they have been nurtured and understand those values and principles are meant to guide them in the spirit of what our the Quran and prophetic tradition wants them to be. They know that this religion, this deen, is not a deen of only in the time of 1,400 years ago. It is the Barakah effect of that deen from that time, and even Prophet Adam, that we are the one that continuing the dots of our each and every one of us to make sure that they live up with the life of the Quran, they uphold the principle and the values of what the Quran is asking them to do, and they see the effect of that barakah of upholding and practicing that in their own life. Then I think inshallah we knew that our investment has already been put into good use then, and I think the word rest in peace is clearly a meaningful peace then.
Actually, I just want to add to that very quickly, Faisal. The fact that I have lived in the States for more than 4 years as a student, and I've seen how, in a nation where it's so advanced in one, from some aspects, they are very advanced, but in terms of everyday life, and even today, when I when I do research on parenting, and when you research on parenting, you cannot help but look into cultures, how the teenagers are living, how families
Yeah.
are. The one thing that keeps popping up in my mind is how the disintegration of families because of no commitment towards marriage, long-term marriage. You know, there's so much is based on desire and physical attraction and not on the long-term view of the hereafter, the repercussions, the consequences of mental health, of physical health, of, you know, there are so many single mothers, for instance, unwed, teenage pregnancy is just so widespread. And when they take up this load of having to raise children, because, you know, when you are free to sleep around with anyone you like, have babies, and then the men just leave, and you live with one man after the other without financial backup, and that is one of the causes of poverty. And not just poverty, it's a cause of great social and mental and emotional and psychological breakdown. So when you look at the Islamic perspective, where, you know, we have a very, and from a non-Islamic viewpoint, they feel like this is so rigid. You know, you have to do the nikah, you have to do the, you know, you're really the sacredness of marriage itself. When it is gone, actually a lot of things go wrong in society, and, you know, the pain and the hurt and the harm that's what I was looking for, the harm that it does to generations after, is very difficult to correct that.
Wow, it's really profound.
All right.
Snowball effect.
Yeah.
Gets worse.
Yeah, mashallah. Yeah, mashallah. So yeah, Uncle and Auntie, also we want to know as well, from just to share with us and the listeners out there, if there was one quote, one ayah of the Quran, or one hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or a quote from our predecessors or salaf, what is that one quote that kind of gets your blood pumping, gets you motivated, gets you inspired, that thing that you always return to?
Well, I still go back to Al-Furqan 74 because that one keeps us check in what we are doing, because it is not only just an amanah but responsibility. It is the best thing is that it doesn't come like an instruction. Thou shall be good.
Oh, that's true.
You know,
yeah.
No, you know, that one, it only tells about give me this so that I can gain this, and then the outcome is this. Wow, it's in the form of a dua, and if it's an instruction, you just say it in the right occasion. You remember or not, God said this, but when Allah turns it into a dua, you can do it at every time, every moment. So,
mashallah, brilliant.
It is a very powerful because it comes from a different perspective, and I think the inspiration from Uncle is that whenever you struggle as a parent, whenever you feel drowned with all these external office and internally challenging emotions among the family members, and when you feel that you are almost given up, then when you remember this ayat then brings you back, you know, into the reality, into the meaning, and into the purpose of why we do what we are doing now. So that's how I keep my sanity check then.
Mashallah.
I love it.
Really can feel it.
Mashallah. Yeah, barakallah feek.
Auntie?
Okay, my turn. Actually, there are several, but for this particular session, I choose this ayat from Surah Al-Qasas.
The story.
Yes. It's Surah 28, ayat 83. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Tilka darul akhiratu naj'aluha lillazina la yuridu na'uluwan fil ardi wala fasadan wal aqibatu lil muttaqin. What it means is that home of the hereafter. We assign to those who do not desire exaltedness upon the earth or corruption, and the best outcome is for the righteous. I love this ayat because for me personally, it reminds me of the path to our final destination. And you see, when we do something, we do not expect people to praise us or to say nice things. Sometimes it could feel like you are talking to a brick wall. You don't know whether your work is producing anything positive or what kind of effects it does, but that's Allah's business. We, the two of us, agreed that we are doing business with Allah, either in raising children or whatever interaction we have with others. So as long as we keep that long-term view, Darul Akhirah, inshallah, Allah will guide us.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. MashaAllah. I really love the way both of you bring a lot of sense to us, like parenting, and you tie it back to our purpose in life. MashaAllah, it gives so much meaning.
InsyaAllah.
Yeah, mashallah. Yeah. So, okay, Uncle Aunty, last but not least, how can our listeners get in touch with you, your work and your organization? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think what we wanted to show to the listeners here, I hope that you can see our slide now. I mean, it's very easy. So our Facebook per our name, and the email address is there. The website, Aunty from time to time will put her blog on parenting, and also in our website, the books can be ordered through those websites. We are selling this latest book, alhamdulillah, at 35 ringgit, including postage, Sabah and Sarawak and Peninsular Malaysia. Aunty has his own Twitter. There's our phone number there. We do respond as on a basis where we can help whatever we can then, inshallah.
Nice.
Mashallah, that's nice. I love your website, by the way. There's a lot of really, really good stuff there, mashallah. So may Allah continue to grant you success and mileage in all of your endeavors. And I just got to know as well, your two sons are maintaining the website, is that right?
No.
They are too busy for that.
Okay. But they have at some point, right? Did I read that somewhere?
Yeah, it used to be that they have us to set it up in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah. But Faisal, someone that we don't know at all, because of the website, the person, when we visited the country, offered us to stay in their house.
MashaAllah.
Just because they read through the website and know us through Facebook. Not met them at all. So they offered to stay at their place for more than a week, I think.
That's so lovely. MashaAllah. Yeah, I love the approach that you have with your entire family, how it becomes like a family endeavor as well. I think Alia did the illustrations for your books, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Right, yeah.
First few books, yeah.
First few books,
yeah. MashaAllah. So yeah, we would love to, MashaAllah, we would love to have both of you once again.
Yeah.
We believe both of you have so much to offer to the world, and we hope that we at the Barakah Effect, we can be that channel that continues to connect more people to you and you to more people out there as well. And MashaAllah, Uncle Fakhri, you promoted us better than we promote ourselves, talking about the Barakah Effect. So thank you very much. Jazakumullah khairan. And subhanallah, just going through this conversation as well, just open up ideas on, we have so much stuff to touch on. And subhanallah, Uncle and Aunty, like, just reading your biographies as well, just triggered me to talk to I feel like I want to talk on so many things, right? So for example, like how working parents, how we want to manage that, because you've been through that and you've gone through some of those struggles, right? I'd love to speak about the kindness miracle, the book, about how, because I always believe that, to make your marriage work, it's so important. It's a team effort. So how do you maintain that team, right? So mashallah, there's so many awesome stuff out there. And I think one of the things I love as well is that Aunty shared about how I became an author, because I also I'm trying to write my book right now, and I really want some tips on that. And I love some of the tips that you shared in that article inside the website, like how to make. Actually, I wanted to ask this, but we didn't have enough time. like you mentioned how like you had somebody who believed in you, like you had parents who made you believe that you can do so many things, and how can we inculcate that in our children? So I would love to speak about that. So
Next session.
so many things. Yeah, we hope that you would
We
love,
hope, yeah.
you would love to come again, Uncle. We want to know some ideas about public speaking. That
that's
doesn't go unnoticed.
Indeed.
Yeah, just let me know and you can arrange for sessions,
Yeah.
then upskilling
We
session.
do online as well
Yeah,
as
we do
face-to-face
online.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we have been doing a lot of online programs.
Yeah,
public speaking
I
as
mean,
well as
Petronas
parenting.
Kota Kinabalu has been with us for the last several years on
Oh,
teaching.
Kinabalu.
Yes, yes.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, and they had their leader speak session already. I also taught. We also taught those in KLCC office,
Yeah.
the well engineers.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah, I went to one of the sessions. Yeah.
So that can be
Mashallah.
done, inshallah. And imagine, I mean, I was just imagining this for all of you now. I mean, at least there's 3 or 4, 5 of you when you organize your trips to somewhere now. Now that you got these tips now, then how you can see the entire program for you, the family, and the children, consisting of those domains and outcomes.
Mhm.
And then at the end of the day, when everybody finished, there's sort of a mini public speaking for the children, and they say what I learned through this journey with my parents.
Oh, that's so nice.
Oh, okay.
And it's simple, either Nia Cave, or if you have not been, it's a very beautiful place. Go to that 1,000 elephant chambers, so that's how I learned that. Or, Limbang and Lawas, or different places. So I think you are in the situation where the children, they are absorbing mode, and you are the one that can be the best teachers, the best facilitators, and the best role models before they are out into the real world by themselves. So this is great opportunity that you complement and supplement one another and plan that way. Inshallah, hopefully this will become a new chapter in their life, as much as it will be a new discovery for you guys then.
Mashallah, mashallah.
For Ame, having 3 girls, tell him that how to handle 3 boys now. Or handle 1 Muawiyah.
Yep. Mashallah. Thank you once again, Uncle and Auntie. We really loved spending time with you, and we'd love to have you once again, mashallah.
Yeah.
So we'd love to close this discussion by having and then mashallah, it's a nice special episode for this one. There are 2 of you here. So perhaps you can conclude this session with this statement. So maybe whichever one first. So complete the sentence. The key to barakah is?
Well, okay, go.
The key to Barakah is being sincere and ongoing effort to achieving outstanding.
Yeah,
Nice.
Grammatically, it might not be correct, but when you think about outstanding, but these are the 2 passwords that I have with my children. Whenever I send them to school, they're not supposed to leave the car until they utter these words. Ikhlas and outstanding.
Ikhlas and outstanding. MashaAllah.
Mashallah.
Always reminded them those are the 2 things that if you hold to them, inshallah, you will not go wrong in life. And I will ask them, why do you need to be ikhlas? Because ikhlas means you do things for the sake of Allah. And if you do things for the sake of other people, you will gain nothing. Outstanding, because every one of us has the potential to be outstanding. You just have got to sustain your effort. Period. So those are the 2 things that lead to barakah: ikhlas and outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, to me, barakah is the outcome that starts with the right intention. And that sincerity and ikhlas in your intention is the starting point and the landmark. And pursuing it, the quality of sabr is always the one that puts you, drive you, push you to continue doing it. And then at the end of the day, whatever outcome it is, you become a grateful person. As what Luqman advised first that when Allah says, be a grateful person, kan, and accept from Allah in the spirit of positive zone. Then I think barakah is something that is not happen one time; it's happening continuously, and so that if your effort that has been well put in, it will become an effort of barakah.
MashaAllah. Jazakumullah khairan.
Yes, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much, Uncle Ahmad Fakhri and Aunty Jamilah. It's been a beautiful conversation. A bit more time than we expected, mashallah.
Yep.
So inshallah we will end on this note, inshallah.
Yeah.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam.
Jazakumullah khairan for joining us in this episode. And we do hope you found benefit in the discussion. And as usual, if you have any suggestions, comments, or feedback, do reach out to us on our social media pages or our YouTube page. Barakallahu feekum.